This is the third part of the DevTools course, which is the JavaScript debugging. Let's take a look into it. The first thing that we'll be covering, which is the console tab. So the console tab is one of the most useful features that the DevTools allows us to use. Basically, the console tab is like a window for the inner workings of a website. It allows us to inspect for messages, check the website script data, and also test and fix things on the go. So for example, on this page, we have 3 messages that are showing. So if we just hit reload once again, we can load those different messages. So the messages that the console gives us are basically of 3 types. First thing is the normal user message, and the second one is the error messages. The third one is the warnings, if we have any warnings on the page. So for example, here we have a normal console message that is coming from a JavaScript file that is loaded. You can also here see that we have an error coming from the same JavaScript file. So if we want to check the location or the source that this message originated from, to the right of it we can see a link to the source map or the location of that error message. So if you want to tackle this issue and solve this type error, we can just simply click on this link and it will instantly go to that place in which that message originated from. So here we have document.head.append childs, which is a typo, so we can just go directly to the audio player module.js from our code base and try to fix that error. So if we hit refresh, we can see that the error is gone now and we don't have that issue anymore. One thing just to note before going further into the other features that the tool gives us, if we just put this error once again back and then we hit refresh, another thing that is cool about the DevTools, which is the different stack that the error originated from. So here we can see that in order to get to this error, the parser had to go into different functions or different levels. So we can see that the issue started from the main module here when the audio player got initialized for us, and then it moved into an anonymous function, which is the same, I guess it should be here, the for each function, this one. And then it got into the audio player, so this is the constructor of it. So it called this .initialize function for us, and then it reached this point. So this is pretty useful to have when you are working with a complex script and logic and there are lots of things calling each other. So this call stack should be useful for you. Let's just to fix this issue once again. Okay, so after fixing this issue, we have another error here, for example, which is coming from a third party. So this is a network error, and network errors have this symbol or button to the right. So if we click on it, we can see the network event that produced this error. So here we can see that it's coming from a third party, and here's all of the details regarding that network error. Okay, so if we move to the right here, we have what is called a live expression. This option allows us to write an expression that gets listened to and printed for us instantly. So for example, if we are interested in like seeing the value of the scroll Y property of the window. If we type it here and then we hit enter, we can see that the value is 0, which is correct because we are not scrolling the page. But for example, if we just have this scrolling now, but the value doesn't update actually, this is because this is just a static value. If we hit it once again, it's still 0. If we scroll to the bottom, hit it once again, we can see that the value got updated. But we are interested in seeing that value updates live for us. We can just write it here into a live expression. And now if we scroll the page, we can see that the value actually changes with us. So this is pretty useful to have when you are debugging or working with a value that gets updated frequently for us. Let's just hit refresh once again. To the right of it, there is this filter field, which allows us to filter the different messages that we have. So for example, if we are only interested in like get messages, we can filter down those messages. If we move far to the right here, we have the console settings. So basically the console settings allows us to customize the different messages that we have, or the settings of the console tab. So for example, if we are not interested in seeing the different network messages, we can just check this box and then the network message got removed. And also the second option, which is the preserve log, this is pretty handy to have when you want to preserve the logs that you have on the page without like if you reloaded the page and you want to preserve that log, you can just check this option, and let's just hit reload once again. You can see that the previous messages got preserved for us. It didn't get cleaned or wiped out for us. If we just remove once again and we hit reload, the messages that show for us are only for this session and are not preserved now. There are lots of options here. For example, if you want to just show or hide the course errors in the console, you can just check this box as well. So basically, that's the most important part of the console tab that you have. There are also two shortcuts that you can use in order to quickly use the console tab. So for example, if you are working on a different panel from the DevTools and you decided to just log something quickly, you can just hit Control backtick and then it will open the console tab for you. If you want to clear the log that you have without having to click on this button, you can just hit Control L and then you can clear this. So basically that's it for the console tab. The next tab that we'll be covering, which is the sources tab. Let's just zoom out a little bit. So the sources panel is one of the most powerful tools that the DevTools gives us. It allows us to navigate through the different sources that the page is loading and debug them easily. Let's dive into what it offers. So if we take a look at the sources panel, we can see that basically it is divided into three parts. The left section over here, the main sources section, and to the right there is this what is called the JavaScript debugging part of it. So to the left here we have different options that the sources panel gives us. The first one, which is the page. The page shows us the different sources that are loaded within the page. So for example, on this index, which is the base URL of it, we have these resources are coming from it. So we have the index.html page, which is the main HTML of the page. Let's just hide this for a minute. Here we have the basic HTML of it. And there are other JavaScript modules that are loaded, for example, and there are the node modules. For example, the Bootstrap is loaded for this, jQuery, Pepper.js. And to the bottom we can see the different extensions. For example, if you are loading any extension on the Chrome, you can also see the sources of that extension, for example. Okay, the second option, which is the workspace, this is a pretty powerful feature that the DevTools gives us. We'll be looking at it into the fourth section. The other one, which is the overrides, also this allows us to override any source with a local source on our computer, and this will be also covered in the fourth section, not now. The fourth option, which is the content scripts, this is basically any script that is loaded from any third party, or any script that is loaded from the page. The last one, which is the snippets section. So let's just remove this for a minute. Go into the snippets. So the snippets allows us to run basically any snippet that we frequently use or is needed on a specific use for it. So for example, you can here write any script that you want, and then you just hit Control Enter and it will run that snippet. There are lots of open source snippets that you can use on the go that might serve different needs or purposes, but for the sake of this example, I'm going to demonstrate two snippets that I found pretty cool to have. So for example, if you want to check all of the third-party code or JavaScript that is loaded, or libraries for example, on the page, you can use this snippet. So you don't have just to copy paste, you can find it online or open source or write it by yourself. So for example, if we want to find the third-party scripts, we can add this here and then hit enter. We can see here that we have the Google Tag Manager, we have the Adobe, for example, any Facebook Connect. So it's cool to have. And another snippet that is cool also to have, which allows us to print out all of the CSS colors used in elements on the page. Also, this is open source. I didn't write this myself. I found it useful at some time. So if we run this, we can see that this allows us to see the different colors that are used. So here we have this color that is loaded 60 times, this blue color 12 times, and so on. Alright, so let's get into the juice of it, the most important parts, which is the JavaScript debugging. Let's just clear all of those tabs for now. So to the right here, we can see lots of options. We're going to tackle them one by one. We're going to also solve some bugs that are within this page, and we're going just to see how we can use all of those options that we have here in order to better debug and solve the bugs that we have on the page. So let's start off with the first bug that we have on the page. So for this audio player, as you can see here, if we click the play button on it, let's just zoom in for just to see it better. If we hit the play button, what we basically have is that the audio doesn't play. We can see here that the timer isn't playing, and the audio, like, I can't hear anything that is playing. So there is a bug with the loading of that audio. So how we can tackle such issue? First things first, we need to check for the event that is played upon clicking this button. In order to do that, the DevTools gives us what is called the event listeners here to the right. So if you go to the Elements tab, and then on the second tab here, on the sub tab, there's this Event Listeners tab. So if you click on it, we can see all of the event listeners that are attached to any of the elements that are included on the page. So if you enable this ancestors, you can see all of those events that are applied to the base document, for example. But let's say that we don't want to check all of the ancestors. So like we are interested into with this element by itself, we are not interested in any of the ancestors of that element. So if we just inspect that element here, which is this button here that we have, and we disable that option, we can see here that there is a click event attached to that button. So if we expand this and we just show this even more, we can see here that there is this button that we've just inspected, and to the right of it there is this source of that handler that is attaching the click event to it. So if we click on that, it will take us right through the place in which the handler for that click event is run. So this is the place in which the click event happens. So first things first, just one note, like if we want, for example, to remove that click listener, we can just hit this button, which is the delete event listener. If we click on it and then we click again, we can see that there's nothing happening here. So this might come in handy if you want, like if you are suspecting a certain event listener that might be causing an issue, you can just remove it and you can just debug once again. We don't have that issue here, so we're going to move on. So let's get back into the place in which the handler for that click event is defined. So this is the trigger click. It basically triggers the event. So if you want to basically see what is going on, to better check where this coming and the issue that we want to debug, we can set a breakpoint in order to stop or pause the execution of the JavaScript, in order to tell the DevTools to stop here when we are executing that handler. So if we click on any of the lines here on the left, this is called a normal breakpoint. So we've just set one and then we hit the play button once again. We can see that the execution is stopped and paused for us here on this line of code. So if you want to navigate through this, we have some options here to the right. The first one, which is the resume script execution, the shortcut for it is F8. Is what it basically does is resumes the execution of the script and jumps between the different breakpoints that we have. So if we have another breakpoint here, let's say on line 121, and then we click that once again, we can see that it resumes to the next breakpoint item. If we just do this once again, we can see that it moves to the next one, which is this line. So let's say that we are not interested into stopping over the next debugging point. We can click this option, which allows us to deactivate the breakpoints. So if we click on this, we can see that the different breakpoints got omitted for us, and then we hit once again and we can see that we've skipped all of the breakpoints. Okay, so here to the right there is this breakpoints option, and this allows us to do two things, which to pause on code exceptions or to pause on code exceptions. Like if there is any error thrown, for example, if we click on it, it will pause on that. It's not very useful in most of the cases because lots of errors might be thrown here and there from lots of scripts. So we're gonna just ignore that for now. So here we can see that we also can see the different breakpoints that we've set on the page. So on this audio player module, we have 5 breakpoints that are set. We can remove any breakpoint, for example, or we can remove all of the breakpoints altogether. Let's get back to this issue to see how we can debug it. So let's just set a breakpoint here and then we hit play. So usually when we are like navigating through code, we don't know from where this issue might come from. So we want to step through the execution one by one to see where this issue could come from. So let's just refresh the page. Hit click once again. So first things, we are stopping on this, which is if not data loaded, is data loaded. So like this, it might be into like the issue coming from one of those 3 lines. So in order to step into this function, we can just hit this option, which is step. The shortcut of it, it's F9. So we just moved a step. This like basically this just initializes the audio, and then we can step over. So the issue might be coming from this function, which is this audio, this.audio add audio event listeners. So we are suspecting that the issue might be coming from this function. So in order to step into this function, there's this option which allows us to go into one of the functions instead of skipping them. So the shortcut of it, which is F11. So after clicking on it, we can move into this function. So the issue might be coming from here. Let's just hide this section for now, and then we can start moving over those functions by hitting F10, which is the normal step. So after checking all of those event listeners, we can see that everything is set well. There are no issues. So after we've seen that the issue is not coming from this function, we can just step out of it by clicking this option, which is Shift F11. So you now move out of this section. So after moving out of this function, we can just resume the execution normally. So we move step by step. So we might be expecting that the issue might be coming from the if else condition. So if it checks if the audio is paused, it does something, and else it does another thing. So what we can do here is that we can just step through the function execution. You can see here that the debugger entered into this if condition. So it the issue might be coming from here. So the condition says that if audio is paused, then audio.pause. So that should be the issue, because the issue is that when we are in the pause state and we click on it, what it does is that it also pauses the audio, which isn't the behavior that we are looking for. We are looking to play that audio for us. So if we move back into the code, and when we go to that handler, which is the toggle, what it was called, it was the trigger click, and we move back here, check it. So if we change this into audio.play, we save this, and then we move back once again, we hit refresh. Let's test our code. If we hit click, you can see here that the player just got working fine. Okay, so that was the first bug that we've tackled. We've just demonstrated how to use the different options that we have in order to navigate through the execution and to better debug the JavaScript.